Imagine being torn in half mid-flight. Your wings shredded, your body broken as you plummet 1,000 feet into cold ocean water. Then imagine parts of you washing up on shore 3 days later. That's how Arrax died. And he's not even number one on this list. The Dance of the Dragons wasn't just a war between humans. It was a slaughterhouse for the most magnificent creatures Westeros had ever seen. Today, we're ranking the most painful dragon deaths based on canon from George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, using factors like duration of suffering, severity of injury, helplessness, and psychological horror. Welcome to the Black Dread. Let's count down the dragons who died screaming. Before we begin, I need to establish my ranking system. Each death gets scored on physical suffering, maiming, burning, crushing duration, instant versus slow, agonizing decline, helplessness, trapped, outnumbered, unable to escape psychological horror, confusion, betrayal, dying far from home. And yes, some of these haven't happened on the show yet, but they're coming. Trust me, you'll want to be prepared. Let's start with number 5. Arrax. Death by Stormclaw Colossi. Arrax was barely a teenager in dragon years, young, inexperienced, and absolutely terrified as he tried to outfly a storm with a dragon 5 times his size hunting him. According to Fire and Blood, watchers on Storm's End saw distant blasts of flame and heard a shriek louder than thunder. Then Arrax and Vhagar locked together midair, lightning crackling around them. The fight couldn't have lasted long. It wasn't a duel, it was an execution. Vhagar didn't just kill Arrax, she shredded him. The young dragon fell broken into Shipbreaker Bay, swallowed by storm-lashed water. 3 days later, Arrax's head and neck washed up beneath the cliffs. His body was never found. Pain score, high physical trauma, short duration, extreme helplessness. Arrax was outmatched from the start, and he knew it. He died in cold, churning ocean water, far from Dragonstone, with his rider screaming on his back. Meleys. Death by fighting 2 dragons. Meleys went down fighting. That's important. She flew into a trap. Criston Cole used Rook's Rest as bait to lure out a dragon. Meleys answered. When she arrived, she burned hundreds of green soldiers. She was magnificent. Then King Aegon showed up on Sunfire. Meleys clamped her jaws around Sunfire's golden neck, tearing into him. For a moment, it looked like she'd win. Then Vhagar dropped from above. Fire and Blood describes what happened next. All 3 dragons met violently 1,000 feet above the field of battle, with fire so bright, men swore later that the sky was full of suns. Meleys closed her jaws around Sunfire's neck. Vhagar fell upon them from above. All 3 beasts went spinning toward the ground, and struck so hard that stones fell from the battlements of Rook's Rest half a league away. Only Vhagar walked away. Meleys was broken and ripped to pieces from the fall. Her body was later found in the wreckage. The impact alone would have shattered every bone. Rhaenys's charred remains were beside her. Pain score, extreme physical damage, mid-range duration, no escape. She fought 2 dragons at once, and gravity won. The crash killed her, but not instantly. Meleys died, knowing she'd been ambushed. Her head was paraded through King's Landing afterward. Ultimate indignity. Moondancer. Death by Sunfire. Moondancer was small, younger than Arrax, faster than most dragons her age, but size matters in dragon combat. When Aegon II fled to Dragonstone with the crippled Sunfire, Baela attacked on Moondancer, brave, reckless, doomed. According to Fire and Blood, Moondancer was quicker than Sunfire and raked his already injured body, tore at his malformed wing. For a moment, it looked like David might beat Goliath. Then Sunfire blasted her with golden flame. Moondancer was blinded. The 2 dragons collided midair and crashed to the ground. Sunfire, despite being crippled, was still massive. He killed Moondancer while both were tangled on the ground. Baela? She survived. barely. Her dragon did not. Pain score, blinded by fire, crushed in a crash, then killed while helpless. Moondancer fought with everything she had and still lost to a dragon who could barely fly. She died at home, on Dragonstone. But that doesn't make it less awful. Sunfire ate parts of her corpse afterward. Caraxes, death by fighting. This is the most metal dragon death in fire and blood. It's also horrifying. Demon and Aemond met above the god's eye. Caraxes versus Vhagar. The two largest, most battle-tested dragons alive. One of them had to die. Both of them did. The dragons locked together in freefall. Vhagar tore Caraxes' belly open, ripped off one of his wing arms. Caraxes bit out Vhagar's throat in return. They hit the water together. Vhagar sank. Caraxes survived. For a while. Fire and Blood says, Caraxes crawled from the lake with his entrails dragging behind him. One wing gone. Belly torn open. Blood pouring out. He made it to shore before finally dying near Harrenhal. Could you imagine that? You've won the fight. You tore out your enemy's throat. You survived the fall. And then you crawl through mud and ash with your guts spilling out, knowing you're dead, but not quite dead yet. Pain score. Maximum physical trauma. Extended suffering. Victory that becomes torture. Caraxes won the battle, but paid for it with the slowest, most agonizing death any dragon has ever endured in combat. He died a hero. That doesn't make it hurt less. Sunfire. Death by rot and decay. Sunfire doesn't die in one battle. He dies across months of accumulated agony. At Rook's Rest, Meleys slashes his chest, tearing at his wing. Vhagar's flame set both wings on fire. Sunfire crashes into the forest, one wing half torn from his body. He survives. He heals at a crooked angle, can barely fly, fights and eats the wild dragon grey ghost, gets fresh scars on his back, huge wounds along his neck, scabs on his belly. He survives. Fights Moondancer, kills her, but the battle costs him his right eye. More wounds, more scars. He can't fly anymore, can barely move. Then Fire and Blood hits you with this line. King Aegon II initially hoped that Sunfire might recover enough to fly once again. The dragon weakened and eventually refused to eat. He died from his stinking wounds on the 9th day of the 12th moon of 130 AC. Stinking wounds. Sunfire didn't die in a blaze of glory. He died like a wounded animal, rotting alive, too weak to eat, covered in infected injuries that never healed. The most beautiful dragon in Westerosi history spent his final days as a broken, suppurating wreck. Aegon wept when Sunfire finally died. Pain score, maximum on every metric, months of suffering, multiple battles, slow starvation, infection, loss of flight, loss of vision, loss of dignity. Sunfire kept fighting and kept surviving until his body simply gave up. This wasn't a warrior's death. This was a slow fade into rot and darkness. The Dance of the Dragons killed 17 dragons. We've only covered 5. The storming of the dragon pit? That's coming. Dreamfire crushed under a collapsing dome. Caraxes strangling himself in his own chains. Shrykos taking 7 axe blows to the skull while a mob sings hymns. And those deaths, some are worse than what we just covered. If you want the full breakdown, every dragon death ranked, every brutal detail from canon, hit that subscribe button. We're covering all of it. I'm your maester at the Black Dread. The dragons died screaming. Their stories deserve to be told.